Rupiah already hit 18,000 to the dollar, a level Indonesia has not seen since 1998 crisis, and Reuters, The Economist, and Al Jazeera have already published all of it to millions of global readers. And if you did not know, a presidential relative was appointed to a key position inside Bank Indonesia, which triggered $2.3 billion in foreign capital fleeing the market in just 3 months. And this pattern is identical to what caused the Turkish lira to collapse 44% in a single week back in 2021. And what makes this even more shocking is that the corruption crackdown being praised internationally is now suspected of being deliberately selective just to divert attention from much deeper problems. And what frustrates me the most is that every single criticism gets immediately labeled a foreign agent plot, even though this exact tactic was already used by Putin and Maduro, and it always makes things worse. So, is Indonesia actually heading down the Vietnam path toward growth or the Argentina path toward an endless crisis spiral? We break down everything in this video, so stay with us until the end.
Not a random number, not an exaggeration. That is the level the rupiah has not touched since 1998 crisis. And Reuters and Al Jazeera immediately broadcasted this to millions of their global readers, meaning before Indonesians themselves had a chance to fully register it, foreign investors had already read it, already panicked, already pulled out. Unbelievably fast the way they move. And what makes me even more emotional is this. This is not just about a bad exchange rate. 1998 was not simply an economic collapse. It was a change of regime. It was riots everywhere. It was a decade of recovery that was deeply painful for everyone who lived through it directly. We are now at the edge of that same number. The same. Exactly. Not almost the same. Exactly the same. Two blows arrived simultaneously, and that is what makes this different from ordinary rupiah weakness. From outside, the Iran conflict sent global energy prices exploding, and Indonesia's oil and gas import balance took an immediate and severe hit. From inside, the free nutritious meals program at its massive scale has begun to be read by independent analysts as a fiscal burden far more serious than officially acknowledged, both hitting at the same time, with no gap whatsoever. The result? Indonesia's capital outflow in 2026 has become one of the highest across the entire ASEAN region. Foreign money is leaving, not gradually declining a little at a time, leaving. And there is one international threshold that you need to know. Every time a developing nation's currency falls more than 15%, the IMF automatically activates active monitoring radar on that country. Indonesia is already on that list now. Even the IMF has its eyes on us. But what surprised me most is the official response. In the middle of all these numbers that are already speaking for themselves, already written by Reuters, already highlighted by Al Jazeera, already read by thousands of global investors that same morning, the domestic narrative remains that our economy is fine, fundamentals are strong. So what exactly is the 18,000 rupiah figure trying to tell us? And what is worse, there are still people who believe that narrative.
A central bank is the heart of investor confidence. Not a metaphor, literally. If the central bank is independent, investors know that interest rate decisions are made based on economic data, not political instructions. But The Economist, the most respected economics magazine in the world, published a stark alarm when a presidential relative was appointed to a strategic position at Bank Indonesia. And the market's reaction? Did not wait for an explanation, did not wait for confirmation, sold immediately. $2.3 billion of foreign capital fled the Indonesian stock market in the first 3 months of 2026. $2.3 billion fled, not declining a little at a time, fled. And this was not because global sentiment was generally negative. This was a specific reaction to one signal sent from Jakarta. The global precedent already exists, and the result is terrifying. Turkey in 2021, Erdogan fired the central bank governor who refused to cut interest rates according to his political wishes. That one decision alone, just one, the Turkish lira immediately collapsed 44% in 1 week. 1 week! The Economist wrote explicitly that Indonesia is taking a risk identical to Turkey at that time. The danger mechanism is simple but lethal. If the central bank is controlled by political interests, interest rates can be pushed low to finance large programs without transparency to the public. Economists call this fiscal dominance. The central bank is no longer the guardian of the currency's value. It becomes a political financing machine that can be directed however the ruling power desires. And one more thing about the timing that is genuinely striking. In the middle of all this heavy fiscal pressure, the giant seawall project, worth hundreds of trillions of rupees, is still moving forward. The Conversation published sharp criticism, not just about the permanent damage to Java's coastal ecosystem, but about the basic logic. Why is a project this large being forced through at a time when the state's finances are under pressure? Who is actually benefiting from this project?
Let me acknowledge this first, to be fair. The arrest of the Bagian chief and several other corrupt officials is real. There are names, there are cases, there are legal processes running. International media praised it, and for a country with a mixed track record on corruption enforcement, that is not a small thing. I do not want to dismiss that. But there is a pattern behind it that I cannot stop thinking about. Everyone arrested has one very striking thing in common. None of them had strong political backing. Not a single big name with deep insider networks was caught up in it. Meanwhile, cases involving deeper circles, silent, completely silent, like there is an invisible wall protecting certain people. This is not an empty accusation from me. Transparency International has documented this pattern across dozens of countries. Selective anti-corruption enforcement statistically fails to significantly raise the corruption perception index because what is being built is not a healthy system. What is being built is a selective performance. And the global audience is already sophisticated enough to tell the difference between the two. The timing also makes me deeply suspicious. These dramatic arrests appeared at precisely the moment when the Rupiah issue and the Economist's criticism were at the peak of public attention. Precisely. Some analysts call this a strategic arrest. Arrest the safe targets to redirect attention away from bigger and more dangerous ones. And the state of democracy is also becoming increasingly concerning. Freedom House in 2026 lowered Indonesia's democracy score. Reporters Without Borders recorded a surge in journalist intimidation. Documentary film screenings were forcibly dispersed. Activists were criminalized. The Duterte pattern in the Philippines and the Orban pattern in Hungary looked exactly like this. Arrest strategically, silence the rest quietly. The pattern is deeply troubling.
So that I do not appear to be only attacking, there is one Indonesian policy that the world genuinely praised without reservation. The Guardian specifically highlighted the social media ban for children under 16 that took effect in March 2026. Australia had just done something similar and is considered a global pioneer. Indonesia moved faster than them. For protecting children from pornographic content and cyberbullying, this is the boldest step in Asia. Undeniable, and I have no desire to deny it. But outside of that one policy, there is a pattern of responses that is slowly damaging Indonesia's ability to move forward in the eyes of the world. And that pattern is the way the government responds to every piece of criticism from foreign media. The pattern is consistent, the pattern is predictable, and the frustrating thing is that the pattern actually makes the situation worse than before. Every time Reuters, The Economist, or Al Jazeera highlights a real problem, the standard response is not counter data, not substantive clarification, but immediately foreign agent. infiltrated by outside forces. Just attack the identity of the source and hope the domestic public discards the content of the message. Political scientists call this guilty by association, a deeply poor communication strategy for a nation of 270 million people. What I cannot stop thinking about is that this tactic has already been used by Putin, Erdogan, and Maduro, and the result is always the same in every country that tries it. The more frequently the words foreign agent come out of officials' mouths, the bigger and more intense the international media attention on that country becomes. The effect is the complete opposite of what is intended. The most dangerous impact is not on the external image, but on the domestic one. When every piece of criticism can be labeled dangerous, citizens learn to stay silent, not because they agree, but because they are afraid. And a country with citizens who silent out of fear is not a strong country. That is a country that is fragile from within.
Before I close, one thing needs to be clarified first. Reuters, The Economist, Al Jazeera, they are not enemies of Indonesia. They write criticism just as hard about America, about China, about Europe. The standards they apply to Indonesia are exactly the same standards they apply to everyone on this planet. And Indonesia has entered their radar not because of some hidden agenda, but because we are the 16th largest economy in the world. If we were not being scrutinized, that would actually be a sign that we are not considered relevant. The real problem is not the scrutiny, it is our choice of response. And on this point, the data is already very clear. Vietnam, India, Mexico, countries that responded to international criticism with measured and transparent reform. All of them attracted more foreign direct investment, more long-term investor confidence, and consistent economic growth. On the other side, Venezuela, Turkey, Argentina, those that went defensive and closed their ears. They entered spirals of crisis that become harder to exit with each cycle. Two paths, two very different results. Indonesia right now is standing precisely at that crossroads. Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Foreign direct investment in 2026 has already fallen from initial projections. The rupiah is already at a level that has the IMF's radar activated. Capital outflow is already underway with no signal of stopping. All the indicator lights are flashing red simultaneously, and we are still debating who is a foreign agent. The final question I leave with you is not about who is right between the government and the foreign media. The question is far more personal. As a citizen living here, paying taxes here, whose future is on this land, have we been sufficiently critical about the condition of our own country? Or do we also choose what is comfortable, choose what sounds good, and hope everything sorts itself out on its own? If you have an answer, write it in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think.